Now that you understand why most people learn slowly, the next question becomes obvious. How do you flip the switch? How do you take your nervous system from its default state and put it into a fast learning mode? Because here's what most people don't realize. Your brain doesn't learn at the same rate all the time. Sometimes it's wide open, plastic, ready to absorb. Other times it's locked down, resistant, almost impermeable to new information. The difference isn't random. The difference is state, and state can be engineered. You can deliberately prime your brain for learning. You can create the conditions where neuroplasticity becomes not just possible but inevitable. Let's talk about how. Acute exercise primes neuroplasticity. Before you sit down to learn something new, move your body. Not a marathon, not an exhausting workout. Just acute, vigorous movement. A quick run, jumping jacks, a bike ride. Something that gets your heart rate up and makes you breathe hard for 10 to 20 minutes. Here's why this matters. When you exercise, your brain releases a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as fertilizer for your neurons. It promotes the growth of new synapses. It strengthens existing connections. It makes your brain more plastic, more adaptable, more ready to change. Studies show that people who exercise right before a learning session perform better and retain more than people who go straight into learning cold. The window of heightened plasticity lasts for about an hour after exercise. That's your golden hour. That's when your brain is primed. So if you're serious about learning something quickly, don't just sit down and start. Prime the system first. Get your blood moving. Spike your BDNF. Give your brain the chemical environment it needs to rewire efficiently. Because a primed brain learns faster than a cold one, every single time. Novelty spikes plasticity windows. Your brain is designed to ignore the familiar and pay attention to the new. This isn't a bug. It's a survival feature. Familiar things are safe, predictable, not worth expending energy on. Novel things might be dangerous or opportunities. Novel things demand attention. And when your brain detects novelty, it releases norepinephrine and dopamine. These chemicals don't just make you alert. They open plasticity windows. They tell your neural circuits, something new is happening. Pay attention and adapt. This is why learning in a completely new environment can feel so potent. Why traveling often sparks creativity and insight. Why changing your routine, even slightly, can make you feel more awake and engaged. Novelty hacks your brain's attention system. So if you want to learn faster, inject novelty into the process. Don't always study in the same place. Don't always practice at the same time. Change your environment, change your method, introduce variation. Because every time your brain encounters something unexpected, it opens a little wider. And in that openness, learning accelerates. Environmental novelty delays habituation. Habituation is your brain's way of saying, I've seen this before. I can ignore it now. It's why you stop noticing the hum of the refrigerator after a few minutes, why you stop feeling your clothes on your skin. Your brain filters out repetitive stimuli to save processing power. But here's the problem. Habituation also applies to learning environments. If you practice the same skill in the same room, at the same desk, with the same lighting, day after day, your brain starts to tune it out. The environment becomes wallpaper, and when the environment fades into the background, so does your engagement. Environmental novelty delays this process. It keeps your brain slightly on edge, slightly more alert, slightly more plastic. This doesn't mean you need to completely change locations every day. Small changes work. Rearrange your desk, practice in different rooms, go to a coffee shop, sit outside. The point is variability. When your environment keeps shifting, even subtly, your brain can't fully habituate. It stays in a more active, more receptive state. And in that state, learning sticks better. So don't underestimate the power of your surroundings. They're not just where you learn, they're part of how you learn. Upright posture increases prefrontal activation. This sounds almost too simple to matter, but your physical posture directly affects your cognitive state. When you sit upright, spine straight, shoulders back, you increase activation in your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for focus, decision-making, and executive control. Slouching, on the other hand, decreases prefrontal activation. It signals to your nervous system that you're in rest mode, not engagement mode. Your body and brain are not separate systems. They're constantly communicating, and your posture is part of that conversation. Research shows that people who adopt an upright, open posture perform better on cognitive tasks than people who slouch or hunch. They report feeling more alert, more confident, more capable. It's not just psychological, it's neurological. So when you sit down to learn, pay attention to how you're sitting. Pull your shoulders back. Lengthen your spine. Don't collapse into your chair. This isn't about looking professional. This is about sending your brain the signal that you're here to focus, to engage, to perform. Your posture is a lever. Use it. Controlled breathing stabilizes focus circuits. Your breath is a remote control for your nervous system. When you breathe fast and shallow, you activate your sympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight response. When you breathe slow and deep, you activate your parasympathetic system, your rest and digest mode. But there's a sweet spot in between, controlled rhythmic breathing. When you breathe in a deliberate pattern, something like 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, you stabilize your autonomic nervous system. You reduce the jitter. You calm the background noise in your mind. And this has a direct impact on your ability to focus. Studies using EEG show that controlled breathing synchronizes brain activity, particularly in areas related to attention and working memory. It's like tuning a radio to get a clearer signal. Your focus circuits stabilize. Your mind stops wandering as much. You enter a state of calm alertness, which is exactly where you want to be for learning. So before you start a focused learning session, take 2 minutes to breathe. Nothing fancy, just slow, controlled, rhythmic breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let your nervous system settle. And then from that stable baseline begin. You'll notice the difference immediately. Slight effort elevates learning chemistry. There's a zone of effort that's optimal for learning, and it's not where most people think it is. It's not maximum effort, grinding until you're exhausted. And it's not minimal effort, coasting through on autopilot. It's slight effort, the feeling of reaching just beyond what's comfortable. When you engage with something that's challenging but achievable, your brain releases a cocktail of neurochemicals: dopamine, norepinephrine, acetylcholine. These chemicals mark the active circuits and say, "This is important. Strengthen this." But if the task is too easy, those chemicals don't get released. Your brain doesn't see the point. And if the task is too hard, stress hormones flood the system and shut down learning. Slight effort is the Goldilocks zone. It's hard enough to trigger the neurochemical response, but not so hard that you panic or shut down. It's the feeling of, "I'm not sure I can do this, but I think I can figure it out." This is why deliberate practice is so effective. It's designed to keep you in that zone of slight effort, constantly adjusting the difficulty to match your growing skill. So when you're learning something new, don't make it too easy on yourself. And don't make it so hard you want to quit. Find the edge. Stay there. That's where the chemistry happens. Temporal landmarks reset motivation loops. A temporal landmark is a moment that feels like a fresh start. The first day of the month, your birthday, Monday morning, New Year's Day, these aren't just arbitrary points on a calendar. They're psychological reset buttons. Research shows that people are more likely to pursue goals, change behaviors, and take action right after temporal landmarks. Why? Because these moments create a mental separation between your past self and your future self. They give you permission to start over, to leave behind old patterns, to become someone new. Your brain's motivation circuits respond to this. Dopamine spikes. Intention solidifies. You feel energized and capable in a way you didn't feel the day before, even though nothing external has changed. You can use this. You don't have to wait for January 1st. You can create your own temporal landmarks. Decide that today is day one of your new learning journey. Mark it. Ritualize it. Tell yourself, this is when everything changes. Your brain will believe you, and that belief will carry you forward with momentum that pure willpower never could. Priming activates cortical maps. Your brain doesn't store skills in a single location. It stores them in distributed networks, maps of neurons that fire together to produce a specific action or thought. And here's the interesting part. You can pre-activate those maps before you even start practicing. This is called priming. It's the process of mentally rehearsing what you're about to do, visualizing the movements, thinking through the steps, activating the relevant neural circuits before you physically engage. Athletes do this all the time. Before a free throw, they visualize the ball going through the hoop. Before a race, they mentally run the course. This isn't just confidence building, it's neurological preparation. By activating the cortical maps in advance, they make the actual execution smoother and more automatic. You can do the same thing with any skill. Before you sit down to practice, take a minute to mentally walk through what you're going to do. See it, feel it. Imagine the movements, the decisions, the flow. You're warming up your neural circuits. And when you actually start, your brain is already halfway there. Priming reduces the friction. It makes learning feel more natural, more fluid. Because in a very real sense, you've already started. Early wins anchor habit circuits. When you're trying to build a new skill, the first few sessions are critical. Not because you're learning the most in those sessions, but because you're establishing the emotional association with the activity. If your early experiences are frustrating, exhausting, and demoralizing, your brain tags the activity as aversive. Every time you think about practicing, you'll feel resistance. Your habit circuits will push you away from it. But if your early experiences are positive, if you experience small wins, if you feel capable and engaged, your brain tags the activity as rewarding. Dopamine gets released. Your habit circuits pull you toward it. You want to do it again. This is why it's so important to engineer early wins. Don't start with the hardest version of the skill. Start with a version you can succeed at. Make it easy enough that you experience progress quickly. Let your brain feel good about the activity. Because once that positive association is anchored, the habit becomes self-sustaining. You'll practice not because you're forcing yourself, but because part of you wants to. So when you begin learning something new, be strategic. Stack the deck in your favor. Choose a starting point where success is likely. Build momentum, because early wins don't just teach you the skill. They teach your brain that this is something worth doing. Identity alignment stabilizes long-term practice. Motivation fades. Willpower runs out. Discipline is exhausting, but identity is durable. When something becomes part of who you are, you don't need to motivate yourself to do it. You just do it, because that's what people like you do. This is the difference between I'm trying to learn guitar and I'm a guitarist. The first is an aspiration. The second is an identity, and your brain treats them very differently. When you adopt an identity, your behavior aligns with it automatically. You don't have to convince yourself to practice. Practicing is just what guitarists do. It's not a chore. It's an expression of who you are. This is why the fastest learners don't just set goals. They shift their identity. They start calling themselves by the name of the thing they're becoming. They dress the part. They hang out with people who share that identity. They immerse themselves in the culture, and their brain accepts the new identity as reality. So if you want to learn something and stick with it long-term, don't just practice. Become. Decide that you are the thing you're trying to learn. Say it out loud. Believe it. Act as if it's already true. Because the moment your identity shifts, the struggle disappears. You're no longer fighting against yourself. You're just being yourself, and that's effortless.